What is the most NSFW thing you've seen happen in a school environment? I'm 40 and still tell this story. In high school at lunch one day everyone was standing around in the halls waiting for the bell. There was a commotion near the boys' bathroom and a line forming. It literally looked like an organized thing where people were going in single file then coming out freaking out laughing etc. So I waited in line and went in. The only way I can describe it is that someone had out a 2-liter bottle sized it and it was literally sticking up past the toilet seat in the bowl. Someone must have died that day. A guy did a poo in the microwave and set it on high for 2 hours. Edit. I'll provide more info. The guy did it because he was angry at a girl. They were at a nightclub. She took his hand and said, "Can you walk me home?" Well, you know what he was thinking. He walked her home to her school hostel and it took about half an hour. When they arrived at her dorm she turned around, said thanks and closed and locked the door leaving him in the corridor. I don't support what happens next. The guy was upset so he walked to the common area, took the plate out the microwave, took a dump on it, put it back in the microwave and set it on high for max time. I heard 2 hours and walked back to his school. Apparently the smell was locked in the microwave so when a different girl woke up to heat some oats and opened the door she was attacked by a wall of stench. The building was evacuated but I doubt they got the smell out. In grade 7, one of the most popular girls turns around after class and licks her finger while looking at me, then asks, "Do you want a BJ?" I laughed and said no. Still haven't slept. Edit. My highest rated comment is my lowest point in my life. Love it. Trading Pokemon cards for a handjob. Girl busts out of a room, storms through the room we were gathered in, spits in another girl's face and says that's your boyfriend's load. Jaws hit the floor, and the other girl cried. Not the typical NSFW, but messed up all the same. This kid who used to sit with us at lunch, Josh, was a self-proclaimed Satanist, and was all about blood, violence, death, etc. A friggin' weirdo. Anyhow, one day there is a fight at the table next to us. Some kid gets punched in the nose, bleeding everywhere. Teachers shuffle both kids off to the principal, before the janitor can come and clean up the blood that had dripped on the table and seats. Josh dipped his finger into the blood, popped it in his mouth and licked it all off. Did it 2 or 3 more times before he stopped and looked at me with the biggest eating grin. It was pretty mental. One of my friends during our junior year of high school whipped out his D under his desk to show his then so for some ungodly reason. She screamed for a split second which prompted the teacher to come over. He looked like he was about to ducking freak when he finally mustered out one word. No. Sent him and his so to the office. One kid caught a glimpse of it and from there on out. His name was Needle D Nick. Edit. RIP inbox and no I am not Needle D Nick. I went to an all-boys Catholic school one night, my senior year, when all of us dorks were working late on the yearbook. I walked into the bathroom to see 2 boys a year below me wrestling on the ground, one still in his boxers and the other with his boxers at his ankles. They never saw me. Well, one of the stairwells in my high school was notoriously used for weed and sex cause no cameras and a door leading outside. I didn't know this and walked in on a couple going all out in there. In college, not much. Most there was walking up a staircase and some girl ahead of me wearing a skirt no underwear. She noticed I was looking. Exhibitionism is great. This girl that sat next to me would sit on her foot and pleasure herself all class. 6th grade me was very confused. 8th grade me witnessed a poor girl bleed through her pants in class and the teacher wouldn't let her go to the bathroom. Edit. For the people wondering, she didn't tell the teacher exactly what was going on at the time, only that she needed to use the restroom. Many years ago, but in swim class one girl's swim costume went almost totally see-through when wet. 15-year-old me was quite transfixed. Once during a class meeting one kid ripped out some of his pubes to prove to another kid that he did in fact have pubes. A guy at my school put a 8-inch dildo up his ass for an entire day at school as penance for cheating on his girlfriend. She did not ask him to do this. They were a weird couple. This is kind of a weird one, but in 7th grade I was friends with a girl who had a very serious porn addiction. This was before smartphones. but she would carry around folded up pictures cut from magazines to mostly women, but some men, in her bag to look at and, I assume, try to get off to any time she was alone, which was usually in the bathroom stall. It was the same way when I was at her house, except she would just take breaks every now and then to literally just walk into the closet and shut the door. It was very bizarre in retrospect. But in 7th grade you don't really have a baseline for well-adjusted behavior, so honestly I didn't think anything about it. We had a teacher who was NSFW. He was an 80-year-old ethics teacher, still at least 6 feet tall despite serious hunching. He would curse, fart and scratch his balls, to the horror of the nerdy girls who sat in the front row. When it was time for roll call, he would just throw his folder at a girl and tell her to do the roll call for him. Emphasis on throw. He also made all sorts of weird jokes, like when teaching us about norms he was joking, well, Norma is a prostitute I met in Mazatlan. Works a little better in Spanish. In swim class, one of the cheerleaders dove into the pool and came up with her 2 loose school-issued one-piece swimsuits, top half pulled down off to her waist from the rush of water. Naked cheerleader boobs in the pool. Only a few of us saw it. I saw it from poolside because I refused to swim. It was a good day to be a 15-year-old who likes breasts. Honer monster fight. A Honer monster was a condom filled with just enough water that it's full, but doesn't stretch. Then you draw a face on it. Suddenly the classroom was a war zone when 2 kids had filled their desks with Honer monsters and started throwing them at everyone during a history class. Edit. I am pretty proud that my top post is about Honer monsters. Here is a story for you. Grade 10 history class. The last day before winter break. Since it's the last day we were just watching movies as a class. Some Bugs Bunny World War II propaganda films or something. The teacher is just sitting at her desk not really doing anything. Our desks are sort of arranged in a U, and I'm sitting on one of the corners. There is a very skinny white boy named Rudolph, obviously not his real name, and a fat sassy black girl named Dasha, also not real name, right next to him. Rudolph had a lot of problems in his home life and came to school plastered a few times and was generally weird, and I don't think these two got on very well. Rudolph decided that they should play the Are You Nervous game. For those who don't know, that's when you slide your hand up someone's thigh until that person gets nervous and loses. So Rudolph goes first, and I'm kinda half watching the movie, and Dasha stops before he gets too close to her V. Then Dasha goes, and Rudolph kinda whispers, "You're literally going to have to touch my balls before I say it." I expected the game to end there, her calling him a perv or something, but no. She unzips his pants while like nervously looking at the teacher. I immediately text my friends in class to look at this it, and now 4 of us are watching. She then very evidently starts giving Rudolph a manual meat massage for like 2 minutes, before pulling her hand out and wiping it on his pants. Nobody ever said anything. They never really talked again. Nada. My old English teacher wrote and published erotica under a pen name. Through further digging my class found her active BDSM blog and podcasts which we would try to quote in class whenever possible. Friend of mine used to finger his girlfriend in class basically every day. Got the occasional handy. They were sitting right in front of me one time and I gave her a look. And she says, "Don't look if you don't want to see it." They were between me and the blackboard. What was I supposed to do? Every week in junior school we would have an assembly and one class would have to put it on. It was our turn. And we had an autistic boy in our class. I forget what he was supposed to do since this was the 2nd grade. He walked up to the microphone with a big smile on his face and was about to speak to the entire school. Teachers, some parents and every student there. Instead of talking he immediately dropped his pants and started spanking it. Everyone was pretty stunned. But when his special needs educator tried to take him off stage he resisted like crazy, all whilst still choking the chicken. I don't think anything else in my school career tops that. Blowjob on the school bus. A tree branch broke off from a tree, smashing right into a girl's head, cracking her skull, nearly killing her. There was so much blood running down her face. Back in junior high school a bunch of girls played a game called Tag the Vag. It was just like normal Tag You're It, but instead of tapping somewhere on the body, like the back, shoulders, etc. You would just touch one particular place. Edit. For all those wondering, it was in fact pronounced so that vag would rhyme with tag. That is, tag the vag. No one really questioned it. Funny thing is, when my year level graduated, our English scores were so that the school implemented an extra compulsory after school English class every Thursday the next year. Makes sense. At school, my first year of high school actually, some guys in senior year decided it would be fun to leave a banana peel in the microwave for a whole hour in full power as soon as lunch break was over. They left the banana getting irradiated and left. Skip about 30 minutes. I'm having class, and the school director knocks on the classroom door and says, in an angry tone, "Everyone out into the hallway. There has been a serious problem." We go out and sit on the hallway, hitting our pants in fear as more and more people from other classes arrive and sit with us. Once every student of the high school is on the hallway, the director says, "Okay, I assume no one will give names, but WHO put the banana peel in the microwave." The microwave caught fire and melted a pile of chairs. Not surprisingly, everyone was struggling hard to keep their it together, as a microwave had been ignited with a banana peel. The surprising part was that, as soon as he asked who did it, a guy stood up and went like, "I did it." The director asked, "Did you do it alone?" To which another 4 students stood up and said, "Nope, we were with him." They all got suspended and we couldn't use the dining room for about 2 days since the smell of burnt plastic wouldn't go away. Luckily the place didn't catch on fire. Edit. Grammar. Friend's brother was caught ducking his GF in the female bathroom. They were both suspended on different days to make sure they wouldn't duck on suspended days. LMAO. My friend put a condom on our teacher's water bottle while she wasn't looking. She only noticed as we were leaving. Back in high school, there were these 2 band kids that were constantly flirting and everyone told them to get a room. Apparently that translated to go duck in the special ed room during practice. They got caught after the janitor had to come clean up afterwards. Apparently, it wasn't a very clean ordeal. They were both suspended the next day and she had a pregnancy scare a couple weeks later. High school ski trip. Group of guys were trying to convince a group of girls to flash them in the woods. Girls only agreed to do it if the guys flashed their peens first. Well, it was cold out, and the guys were worried about shrinkage. So cut to a shot of 6 or 7 high school boys furiously whacking off in the snow, while a group of bored girls stood and watched. A substitute teacher gets fired for taking pictures of kids. In one of my classes I had him as a sub for a few days, and I remember the first day he taught us he made each of us get up and stand with our back facing the door of the room. He'd take the picture and we'd sit back down. I didn't think about this till years later. Someone that I went to school with brought it up and I asked my mom if she remembered and she did. She told me she had got a call and letter from the school asking if I had said anything to her about that sub or was interested in talking to the police. I wasn't there for it, but at my high school there was a very infamous senior prank that happened. Basically a student hit a deer or found a dead deer somewhere out on the road or something. 3 to 4 more students took that dead deer into the school cafeteria on the weekend while a school play was happening and put it in the ceiling above the cafeteria. A few days later a teacher felt something dripping on them and I guess saw the blood dripping from the dead deer. School was closed down for 3 days, I think by the CDC, to clean up the mess. One time as I was leaving my classroom between bells in high school, I saw this girl with rather large breasts come bounding down the hallway, frantically fumbling with the button S on her shirt, jiggling all over the place. Barely a second later, while I'm admiring the scene, some dude came breathlessly sprinting after her shouting, "Wait, girl's name, come back, do that again," before they both bolted outside with him still giving chase. Edit. I should add this was in a more secluded part of the school, near the back, not as much foot traffic, few adults. There was the boys' dorm, and there was the girls' dorm. There were windows. One night a particularly slutty girl stripped for the boys. It was a pretty good night. A girl had 2 foursomes in one day, with 2 different sets of guys. No, it wasn't rumor. I knew the girl who confirmed it. Honestly, she was just a really happy hoe. I will say that I am oblivious to signals from women. So there was a girl in my 11th grade science class that sat next to me and we used to talk all the time. She even came over to get help with schoolwork and was touchy-feely, and I was always like, what is wrong with you? Again, very oblivious and at self-esteem. One day during winter in class she and I were talking and she said she got her clit pierced. I was like, no the duck you didn't, why do you lie so much? She then proceeded to unbutton and unzip her pants and shove my very cold hands down her pants. Yup, she pierced it. But she also screamed and stood up with my hands down her pants. The whole class saw and I was bright red. I was super embarrassed and got sent to the principal's office. But I felt a pussy, so win. Once I saw the girl's ankle. Now I'm going to hell. A female student being taken from behind by another of our classmates in a hall at school. He'd used a Tato crisp, chips for you Americans, packet in place of a condom. All those sharp edges and the salt and vinegar remnants made it seem very unsafe for all involved. My wrestling locker room. Just everything. We had a game called Galaxy. In the showers. We had a long hallway of slippery tile before the entrance. We would pour a ton of soap down the hallway and run down it and slide like a slip and slide. The swirls and bubbles made it look like a galaxy. Also not as NSFW. But sleep trains were a huge thing. I miss those. For those who didn't read my comment below about sleep trains. A large group of us lay down on the mat. Head on top of belly. Head on top of belly. Head on top of belly. In no particular order or line. Just a weave of guys using each other as a pillow. The high school I went to was a 5-building campus. I remember hearing about a girl giving a dude head in one of the stairwells, and how a teacher caught them. Later that day I heard rumors that it was a girl I knew, who was also very girl next door straight A student type. But I didn't believe it. I just came right out and told her what people were saying and she got red in the face and kind of laughed it off. That's when I realized that I had actually seen them in that stairwell. It wasn't a highly populated portion of the building it was in, on that same day. Probably right before she started to go down on him. They were literally going at it in between the times that classes changed over. A teacher assigned summer homework for the kids that were gonna be in his class the following school year. Middle school in the early 1990s science class was a big room divided in two with a large curtain type wall. Me and a friend sat on the end and you could see into the next class. Some students in the next class could see us. School friend decided to flash his bush. Must have just grown it. Girl in next class over we knew one-upped him by flashing us a bush. Good times. One of the earliest memories. So early can't remember if it happened or not. In like kindergarten or maybe my first year of school, I was watching a classmate spinning around in a tire swing. One of the 3 chains snapped and I can remember parts of his skull showing. It was cracked in 3 places like a T. I remember the ambulance picking him up. After numerous complaints from the primary school next door to my college high school, the principal gave us an assembly stressing the point don't slip a finger behind the library. Kids can see that it. So it at home you horny duckers. Hilarious assembly. We were pissing ourselves in the back of the hall because we know exactly who he was talking to. They went red as a tomato and looked at each other. In the end, no more complaints from the primary school. Seems like they went home and did it. 10th grade. One girl would wear no panties with a kilt and flash the class her asshole every now and then. Bend over a desk and wiggle her hips and everything. So at lunchtime in the courtyard at my high school, seagulls would show up every day to scavenge. Some kids would throw them food too. Well, this one kid used to like to scare them off and throw stuff at them. Never intended to really hit them. Then one day he did. He chucked a Gatorade bottle that still had about 1/4 of the liquid still in it. It clocked a seagull in the head and knocked one of its eyes out of its socket. It was bleeding profusely. This kid nearly got his ass beat by about 30 people. Took like 5 teachers to break up the situation. He got expelled in the end. Seagull died, I think. They called animal control or something. But I think too much damage was done to save the poor thing. At my school and dorm room the other week some kid jumped off the 5th story and killed himself. That was pretty duck in NSFW. Edit. Since everyone was asking where it was at Temple. Apparently this has happened at a bunch of different schools recently. Really sad. We had a bathroom in our high school that didn't have any cameras pointing at it, so plenty of students went there to smoke cigs and pot. But there was this one girl who took advantage in other ways. Here I am minding my business trying to smoke a joint in peace when she comes into the bathroom, and so does a couple of guys, and she just starts blowing all of them. Then it leads to them ducking, and at this point I was down to the roach. I just flushed it and left. There was said to be a video that floated around, and I hoped I wasn't just this weird guy in the background smoking a joint while this girl has a train ran on her. The school caught wind about the whole incident and the bathroom was closed down. Saddest day of my life. In primary school, year 7, we had this big round table that was in the middle of the classroom that half the students would sit around during class. One afternoon we had a sub who caught one of the girls in my class giving one of the guys a blowjob from under the table. 12-year-old me barely knew what boobs were, and here's some dude getting a blowjob. The world can be cruel sometimes. I was walking into the upstairs boys' bathroom near my English class in high school when I heard loud moaning from one of the stalls. Of course I had to see what it was. Some dude was ramming his D up this girl's ass doggy style while she alternated between screaming and moaning. My friend got a hand job on a school bus when we were 14. A student at my university caught a professor ducking a girl over his desk on campus. He then proceeded to post it on Twitter. Edit. Here's the video. The school is University of Arkansas. Edit 2. Apparently UARK denied the claim and said it wasn't the professor. It was still on the news a year or two ago for like 2 weeks though. Not sure if true. A guy in our class once grabbed scissors by the handle, not the blades, and started running around with them. That wasn't safe at all. 2 guys in my class were jacking off to gay porn in class together. They didn't give 2 ducks that people could see. Neither of them go to my school anymore because they got expelled for getting into a fight. Weirdly, they didn't get in trouble for the porn incident though. Not sure how NSFW this is, but I work in an elementary school district and we have a code word for the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. We call it lollipoping. All the lab computers have headsets for kids to listen to lessons or whatever, and they all have the wired mic attached to them. The kids like to suck on the mics for whatever reason, just like a lollipop, hence the name. I've watched one class come in, suck on the mics for 45 minutes, leave them soaking wet. They leave and the next class comes in and does the same damn thing. Kid pops a wet mic in his mouth and sucks on it all class period. Almost made me puke. My friend was in a Catholic boarding school in Ireland last year where a boy rammed another boy hockey stick up his ass. He got expelled and it made the title page of the local newspaper. Also there was a lot of ducking going in the music classroom. I've overheard 2 students having sex in the bathroom stalls. I was 14 and shocked. One time I went to the bathroom and found a red, used condom in the middle of an empty hallway. I was in 8th grade and looked at a couple of seniors passing by with a "you seeing this it?" face. They looked at me like I had 3 heads for freaking out over a condom. This female friend gave me a blowjob in the corridors of my college. Wonderful girl. Edit. Just one quick remark. Both of my top comments are sex related. The 4 stories that were the talk of the school for me for a long time were: 1. A kid in HS pooped on the floor in our library for a $20 bet. He won but was also suspended for a week and then another week of in-school suspension. 2. A girl guy in HS got expelled for having sex in the bathroom during class time and when they were caught, had drugs on them. 3. 2 teachers apparently had sex on an out-of-state field trip with students and were later fired. 4. Teacher fired and arrested for apparently hooking up with a 15-year-old student. Bonus story but not from my school. Heard about it in the newspapers and from friends. A kid took a ketchup bottle from the lunchroom and took it into the bathroom. Did his thing into it. Went and put the bottle back for others to use. Pretty sure he was expelled and arrested on some very serious charges. Edit. It wasn't a ketchup bottle. It was a ranch salad dressing bottle. Again. Heard this in the news over a decade ago and had already graduated from my HS by then. A different one. Found a link for proof.